In 2018, the lights went out on more than 700 stores. 33,000 people lost their jobs. And the official story you heard was simple. Amazon killed Toys R Us. The giant got beaten by the internet. Except, that's not what happened. The truth is, Toys R Us was still making money the day it died. It wasn't out-competed into the grave. It was loaded with $5 billion of debt by the very people who owned it, bled for over a decade, and left unable to throw a single punch. This isn't a story about Amazon. It's a story about how Wall Street can buy a healthy company and quietly drain it dry. To understand the murder, you have to understand the empire. It began in 1948 with a man named Charles Lazarus and a little baby furniture shop in Washington, D.C., called Children's Bargain Town. Lazarus noticed something simple, but powerful. Parents came back for a crib once, but they came back again and again for toys. Toys broke. Kids outgrew them. And Christmas came every single year. So in 1957, he bet everything on that idea. He renamed the store Toys R Us and opened the first of a brand new kind of shop, a giant warehouse, stacked floor to ceiling, with nothing but toys. They called it a category killer. And the name was literal. More selection, lower prices, the hottest toys first. Toys R Us didn't just compete with the corner toy store, it erased it. By the 1980s, Geoffrey the Giraffe was a household face, and a jingle written in 1982 burrowed into an entire generation's brain. I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid. At its peak in the early 90s, this one company controlled roughly a quarter of the entire American toy market. More than 1,500 stores would eventually circle the globe. If you were a kid, it was a cathedral. If you were a toy maker, it was the kingmaker. Toys R Us decided what sold. This was not a weak company. This was the most dominant toy retailer the world had ever seen. But every empire carries the seed of its own undoing, and for Toys R Us, the first crack appeared in 1998. That year, for the first time, it was knocked off the top spot. Not by the internet, by Walmart. Walmart didn't love toys the way Toys R Us did. It didn't need to make a cent on them. It used cheap toys as bait, a loss leader, to pull families through the doors to buy groceries and TVs. Toys R Us sold toys, and almost nothing else. It simply could not win a price war against a rival that was happy to lose money on every action figure. Then came the second mistake, and this one was self-inflicted. In 2000, after a disastrous holiday season where its website failed to deliver toys on time, Toys R Us made a fateful deal. Instead of building its own online store, it handed the keys to Amazon. It actually paid to become the exclusive seller of toys on Amazon's platform, outsourcing its entire digital future to the one company destined to become its greatest enemy. For 10 years, while Amazon learned everything there was to know about selling online, Toys R Us learned nothing. The deal eventually collapsed in lawsuits when Amazon let other sellers list toys anyway. Toys R Us sued, walked away, and years later pocketed a $51 million settlement. But the damage was done. They had handed their rival a decade-long head start and built no muscle of their own. So yes, by the mid-2000s, Toys R Us was wounded. Walmart had taken its crown. Amazon was rising. The toy business was getting harder. But here's the part the Amazon killed it story leaves out. It was still alive. Still profitable. Still pulling in around $11 billion a year. A wounded giant can heal. It can adapt. It can invest. It can fight back. Unless somebody ties its hands behind its back first. And in 2005, that is exactly what happened. In March of 2005, three of the most powerful financial firms on earth came knocking. The private equity titans KKR and Bain Capital, and the real estate giant Vornado. Together, they bought Toys R Us for $6.6 billion, $26.75 a share, and took it private. Now, here is the trick at the heart of a leveraged buyout, and you need to understand it, because it is the whole story. When these firms bought Toys R Us, they didn't really pay with their own money. They borrowed most of it, and then, in a move that sounds insane until you realize it's perfectly legal, they put that debt onto Toys R Us itself. Imagine someone buys your house with a mortgage, and then makes you, not them, responsible for the payments. Overnight, a company that had carried very little debt was buried under more than $5 billion of it. And that debt had a price, around $400 million, every single year, just in interest. $400 million a year that used to be free to build the future, now vanishing into the pockets of lenders. And so the slow strangling began. Toys R Us was still turning an operating profit, but almost every dollar of it was now already spoken for. While Walmart and a surging Amazon poured billions into lower prices, slicker websites, and faster delivery, Toys R Us was counting pennies. And the reporting on what that looked like inside the stores is genuinely grim. Floor cleaning, cut from weekly to monthly. Dusting the high shelves, eliminated. The aging technology that ran the company, left to rot, so that when they finally did launch a new website, the servers buckled and crashed, killing 6,000 orders in a single holiday week. As one analyst put it, plainly, if you're diverting your cash to make interest payments, that's money you're not spending on something else. And that something else was survival. But while the company starved, its new owners ate well. The three firms charged Toys R Us a $15 million advisory fee every year, a fee they collected whether they did any advising or not. They took a cut every time the company borrowed more, $128 million in transaction fees alone. All told, the owners pulled more than $470 million in fees and interest out of the very company they claimed to be saving. So picture it. The patient is bleeding out, the competition is circling, and the people in charge are billing by the hour. This wasn't a company that failed to compete. It was a company that was never allowed to. By 2017, the math finally ran out. Still drowning in that $5 billion debt that, 12 years later, it had never been able to pay down. Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy that September. At first, the plan was to reorganize, to save it. But the debt was too deep, the holidays too weak, and in March 2018, the verdict came down. Liquidate everything. All 735 US stores, gone. And the cruelest part was saved for the people who had nothing to do with the deal. 33,000 American workers lost their jobs, many who had given decades to the company, and they were told there would be no severance, zero. The firms had collected hundreds of millions, the cashiers and the stockers got nothing. So they fought back. Former employees organized under a group called United for Respect, and they did something clever. They went after the pension funds, the teachers and public workers' retirement money that had invested in KKR and Bain. Embarrassed and under pressure, KKR and Bain each put up $10 million, creating a $20 million hardship fund for the workers. Vornado, the third owner, contributed nothing. $20 million, split between tens of thousands of people who said they were owed closer to 75. It was something. It was nowhere near enough. The brand itself didn't entirely die. A company called WHP Global bought the name in 2021, and Jeffrey the Giraffe made a quiet comeback, a flagship inside a New Jersey mega mall, little shops tucked into hundreds of Macy's stores. But make no mistake, that's a logo for rent. The empire, the 1,500 cathedrals of childhood, was gone for good. So, who really killed Toys R Us? The easy answer is Amazon. And it isn't entirely wrong. Amazon and Walmart absolutely wounded it. The toy world was changing, and Toys R Us made real mistakes of its own. But a wounded company can recover. The reason this one couldn't, no cash to fight, no money to modernize, no room to even breathe, was the $5 billion in debt strapped to its back by the people who owned it. Amazon and Walmart threw the punches. The leveraged buyout tied its hands. And that's the part of this story that should worry you, because Toys R Us was not a one-off. It's a playbook. A healthy business, bought with borrowed money, drained of cash, and discarded when the debt finally catches up. And it's being run, right now, on companies you shop at every week. If we just drew something new for you, that's exactly what this channel does. We sketch out how empires really rise and fall, the parts the headlines skip right over. So subscribe, and tell me in the comments, which company should we put under the pencil next? I'm reading every single one.